What is going on, my good people? Gonna wait for some of you to get in here. Today we are going to be talking about some research that I've been doing. Just going to wait for people to hop on here, but I've been doing a lot of research into the great lymphatic system and something called the blood protein research that has been kept hidden since, there was a major cover-up in the 1960s of key research, key life-changing research, information that would literally enhance people's lives, allow them to know the root causes of their diseases and knowing how to change that. It was all hidden, and there was a massive cover-up in the 1960s. So I'm going to attempt to go into that a bit in this live, but it's going to take multiple live calls to really round out this research. But I did make a blog on it for anybody who wants to go check that out, but we're going to go through it today anyway in the live call. So if you're in the beginning of this call and you stick towards the end, it's gonna be pretty shocking to find out about this stuff. And hurry up and tell us. I wish I could just tell you, in one sentence, but it doesn't really work like that, unfortunately. We kind of have to understand a bit about the mechanics and just kind of building up to what's actually happened and actually, doing justice to all of that research that's gone into that, and just understanding it as a whole, Hey, from Norway, nice. Salute, Danisher. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that. Yeah, so these live recordings will be recorded, so I'm definitely going to be posting this on my page anyway for anybody who tunes out. You're still going to be able to follow up later on when you can. Hello from Alabama, nice to meet you. Kazakhstan, wow, we've got people from all over here. All right, okay, so let's get into it. So I've got a few notes here, so I'm just going to follow a little bit of points, a little bit of a plan. So, what is the great lymphatic system? Let's understand these basic principles before we can get into that major cover-up that's happened. But without the lymphatic system, it's basically having a house without a septic tank. Imagine you just paid 500k on a new house. You go in, everything's new, clean, but there's no septic tank, there's nowhere for the waste to go. You take a nice little dump there, and all of a sudden it backs up into your own house. No matter how clean the house is, no matter how clean the kitchen, how sparkling new the spoons are, it's soon going to become a cesspit of complete and utter nastiness when you flush the toilet and it comes back up into your own house. That is very synonymous to having a body without a fully functioning lymphatic system, which is unfortunately what a lot of people have today. The lymphatic system has been called many different names. By the way, guys, if you have any questions and you stay tuned to the end, put them down in the question box here. If you write them in the question area there, they will be saved, and I'm going to do a little Q&A afterwards and go through some of the questions. So if I don't get to them right now, I'll be answering some of those at the end for sure. So the lymphatic system has been called many different names. I like to call it the body's purification system. It's the system that deals with the acid side of chemistry, that deals with the waste side of chemistry. And it's been likened by Dr. Samuel C. West, or C. Samuel West, his name is Dr. West, we'll call him. He was a great lymphatic researcher. He was the one that brought all this knowledge. He pictures the lymphatic system as a tree. So we have the trunk here, the tree trunk here, which is the thoracic duct, and it branches into the head. So the lymphatic vessels go up to the head and down in the roots, which is the lower extremities. And I think this is a beautiful way to picture it, because a lot of the bulk of the action happens here in the thoracic duct. This is a very key part. And if you watch my recent episode, my recent video actually on Instagram, you'll come to understand why that's really, really important. So the lymphatic system, we have 4 times the amount of lymphatic fluid than blood. People think blood is the most dominant fluid in the body. That's not true. The lymphatic fluid is the most dominant fluid in the body. and it's primarily made up of 90% water and 10% waste materials. So you have hormones, proteins, cellular metabolic waste that all enters the lymphatic system. That's the side of dealing with all of that waste. And it circulates everywhere around the body. It's in interstitial spaces. In fact, the blood capillaries don't go into the interstitial spaces. So when we have tissue, the blood capillaries don't reach the minute spaces that surround the cells. The lymphatic system is the only system that actually branches out into that area. They sit so closely to the cells. This is really, really important to understand as we go more deeper into this. And one of the ways that I like to picture the lymphatic system, which I think is more easier for most people, is I like to say, and I learned this from John Rose. A lot of people who have been following me know about John Rose. John Rose likes to call the blood the kitchen, and the lymphatics is the bathroom. The blood, which is the kitchen, feeds the cells, just as you go to cook food in your kitchen to feed yourself. The blood feeds the cells, and the lymphatic system is the bathroom, is where you excrete and dump your waste. Very, very easy terminology to understand the difference between the blood and the lymphatic system and the roles that they have in the human body. So that's the lymphatic system. It's the side that deals with cellular waste. When cells are going through their metabolic processes, when they're gobbling up nutrients, they're giving off cellular waste, they dump that into the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is this water-based system that takes waste into what are called lymphatic nodes that are situated all around of your body for that waste to be neutralized, to be broken down by lymphocytes, by bacteria, by different kind of elements within the lymphatic nodes that will break that down, go to the eliminatory organs, your kidneys, your colon, your lungs, your skin, and also then to be recirculated back into the bloodstream. That's very, very important to understand. I'm going to save this live for sure. So if you hop off, you're going to be able to catch up with this later on when I've posted it. Just appreciate everybody here staying in and learning more about the lymphatic system and more about the research that I've been doing. So the next thing we want to cover is, the basic needs of the cell. I'm painting a picture here for you so that it makes a bit sense as we go a bit along. So the basic needs of the cell, we'll keep it simple. The cell needs oxygen and it needs nutrients. In fact, a lot of people have purported cancer to be oxygen deprivation of the cell. Most of the disease conditions we have in the body can be attributed to a lack of oxygen in the cell. And there have been many studies, many amazing experiments, many amazing scientists that have come out and started to understand this. A dying cell is a cell that's deprived of oxygen. And that's basically the limited knowledge we need to understand this, but we're going to go a bit deeper. And of course, it needs nutrients to stay alive as well. In the cell, there's going to be a delicate balance of sodium and potassium. There's going to be more potassium in the cell than there is sodium. Outside of the cell, so in the interstitial spaces, so we have the cell and then we have the spaces around the cell, there's going to be a delicate balance of sodium and potassium too, but there's going to be more sodium in the outside. This delicate balance creates electric potential. Let's just say this is what creates electricity within the cell. It turns the cell into a power generator. It's very, very important to keep the delicate balance of sodium and potassium in and out of the cell. If that is changed, we're going to get cellular stress and eventually cellular starvation and death. So, these are the key elements we're talking about what the cell needs. So we need oxygen, we need nutrients, we need the delicate balance of sodium, potassium in and out of the cell. What else do we need? Well, we've been talking about the lymphatic system. The cell needs to get rid of its waste properly. There's an amazing study done by Dr. Alexis Carrel in the, let's say the 1920s, I believe. And in the 1920s, he ran an experiment where he tried to keep cells alive indefinitely. He wanted to keep cells alive in a medium culture that represented the human body or conditions within the human body. And he was able to do that in two ways. He got the cells, and there were chicken heart cells. And he fed the cells nutritious feedings, But at the same time, he changed the culture in which the cells were inhabited every day. He renewed this because the cells would give off waste, and in order to get rid of the waste, he would change the culture in which the cells were bathing in. He was able to keep these cells alive for over 30 years. How did the cells die? After the experiment came to an end, how did they die? Well, he didn't change the culture. He didn't change the waste. He didn't remove the waste. The cells died within 3 days. This is a very, very important point to understand the power of the lymphatic system, that if the lymph system does not remove cellular waste or waste materials that have accumulated around the cells will die. And we're going to go into a little bit of the mechanics of why that happens. But great experiment to just highlight the importance of the lymphatic system. I hope you guys are staying with me here. And if you guys hop off, because I know some of you guys are busy, that's all good. You can hop on later into my account. I'm going to post this live so that you can follow up where you left. So now we're going to get into what is called the blood protein research that happened, let's say, in the 1930s up until the 1960s. The blood protein research, before the 1930s, it was a generally accepted idea that the blood proteins did not leak out of the capillaries into the interstitial spaces. What do I mean? So the blood proteins within the blood did not leak out of the capillary pores into the spaces around the cell. I'm going to show you a little diagram of what I mean in a second, but I'm just going to get to that. So it was generally accepted that that didn't happen, but that wasn't true. You see, there was a man named Dr. Cecil Drinker. Dr. Cecil Drinker. I mean, I have a written blog post about this, so you can follow up on that as well. But Dr. Cecil Drinker had a hypothesis and a theory that, in fact, these blood proteins, they do leak out of the capillary walls and into the interstitial spaces. Now, what are these blood proteins? We all have blood proteins inside of us. These three main blood proteins are albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. These are blood proteins that we do not get from food, but are actually manufactured by our own body, our own lymphatic system, our own liver, sorry. So the liver uses amino acids to make these three blood proteins, albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. Very, very important. This is the blood protein research that has been hidden for decades, since the 1960s. It's been hidden that long. So Dr. Cecil Drinker had a theory that, in fact, these blood proteins do leak into the interstitial spaces and eventually, if not dealt with properly, cause cellular distress and cellular dis-ease. He didn't have the funding. To confirm this, but his findings were actually confirmed later by more in-depth research. Dr. Mayerson was his name, and he continued the research because he had the equipment, and he tagged the blood proteins with iodine, and he watched them, and he measured how much blood protein was leaving the capillaries or leaking out of the capillary walls into the interstitial spaces. So they were able to clarify that this was actually happening. This was in fact a real thing. Now, why is it important? What's so important? Why are we talking about proteins leaving the capillary pores into the interstitial spaces? Well, this is what we're going to get into. I'm going to share with you something here. Okay, this leads me on to something called the dry state. If you remember at the beginning of this call, I mentioned somebody called Dr. C. Samuel West. He was a great lymphatic researcher. He's the one that brought all of this information out. And he came up with a term called the dry state. The dry state is what you see here. And in this state, at the top we have the capillaries. We see that top tube, right? We have the capillaries there at the top, and at the bottom we have the lymphatic system. As you can see, the lymphatic system branches out in between the cells. You can see those branches going in and around the cells. Now, if you see in the dry state, the cells are closely packed together in a vacuum-like state. This is really, really important. This is the state of health in which man experiences no dis-ease. This is the state of health in which man experiences no dis-ease, in which the human body is functioning fully and optimally. This is very, very essential to know. Now, what he found or what the blood protein research suggests and proves and shows actually, that in the capillaries, the blood proteins will leak out into the interstitial spaces. And if this happens at such an extent and so quickly, because the blood proteins are negatively charged, let's say albumin is a negatively charged protein, it will magnetically attract water and sodium. So as the blood proteins leak through the pores of the capillaries and into the interstitial spaces, it will bring along magnetically water and sodium into the interstitial spaces. This is what we know as swelling and edema. This is the root cause of our health challenges, ladies and gentlemen. This is what is happening at the root cellular level when we start to experience dis-ease. When you cut your finger, when you burn your finger, when you bang your ankle or twist your knee and you get that swelling, this is what is happening, my friends. That the blood protein at a very quick rate has gone into the interstitial spaces, bringing water and bringing sodium into the interstitial spaces. Now, what happens when water is brought in? A lot of protein is brought in, and also sodium is brought in. Well, as you can see from the dry state we could call it the wet state. The wet state is when the water has come, surrounded the cells, created much space around the cells. Protein have become locked within that space. The sodium and potassium balance has now been disrupted. The electrical charge of the cell is now disrupted. Oxygen cannot get to the cell now, and now we have oxygen deprivation and eventually oxygen starvation, or cellular death and cellular starvation. This is really, really key research and key understanding, because if this is what takes us into the lymphatic system. Because if the lymphatic system here, if you see those lymphatic vessels, cannot quickly and efficiently enough take out proteins from the spaces around the spaces around the cells, that is what is going to lead eventually to cellular death. So you know the importance of the role of the lymphatic system. And in fact, it was actually suggested by a lot of these researchers that if the proteins are not taken out within 24 hours by the lymphatic system, then cellular death ensues. If the proteins are not taken out after 24 hours, cellular death ensues. This is very, very important knowledge, because this also highlights the importance of, when we hold our breath for so long, why we need to breathe, why the body needs oxygen, right? So this is all part of the blood protein research, and is crucially important to understand. In this episode, we're not going to get into the factors of what caused proteins to rush into this. That's going to be left for another one. We're just going to cover a little bit of the research here and get more into that. And this is where we're going to get onto the scam. So I'm just going to stop sharing that for a second. I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. No questions yet. Okay, so how do we prevent this from happening? Okay, we're going to get into that on another live, most likely. But a lot of it goes into a lot of the things that I have been already speaking on my page about moving the lymphatic system, making sure that that's working efficiently and effectively, because that is going to be the savior. When you work the lymphatic system and making sure that lymphatic circulation is the priority of your human body, you're going to prevent this from happening. But there are a lot of things that may be out of our control that make this happen. And we're going to talk about that on another live. In this live, we're just going to talk a little bit about the research and the actual scam that has gone on with this. Okay, so as we said, in the 1930s, and then as Mayer brought out this research in the 1960s, I believe, this research started to get picked up on. People started to understand the role of the blood proteins and the role of the lymphatic system, how they work together. And it's also important, I should also mention this as well, which is something that just slipped my mind. So we have how many now? Let me just pull this statistic up now. Here it is. We have lymphatic vessels, around 240,000 miles of lymphatic vessels, compared to the 90,000 miles of blood vessels. So we have 4 times or 3 times as many miles of lymphatic vessels than we do have blood vessels. And in the capillaries, as the blood is flowing through at such a quick rate. I mean, it takes 60 seconds for the blood to make a complete circuit around the entire body. 60 seconds, that's a quick amount of time. So as the blood is passing through the capillaries, the way the cells actually get their nutrients is they have to sit tightly and closely to the capillary wall, because there is a phenomenon of diffusion between the capillary wall, the blood in the capillaries, and the cells underneath and the interstitial spaces. So as the blood comes through the capillaries, there is a diffusion process where the blood in the capillaries goes down into the interstitial spaces and comes back up. Now, the researchers and Dr. Samuel C. Smith, he talks about how this happens 80 times per second. This diffusion process happens 80 times per second. That means the cells have to sit very, very close to the capillary walls, because if they don't, they do not receive optimum amount of nutrients, oxygen, and all the other good stuff that the cell needs to survive. Let's just say oxygen and nutrients. So if the cells are not closely and tightly vacuum packed against the capillaries, they're not going to receive their nutrients. Very, very, very important, because then, as you can see, when the blood proteins leach into the interstitial spaces, bringing the water, bringing the sodium, and all of that balance is gone off balance, and the spaces then expand, the cells are no longer tightly packed, and there's not a vacuum-like phenomena happening in the interstitial spaces. And this is how the cells become deprived of nutrients and oxygen. So I hope you get what I'm trying to say here is they have to sit very close to the capillaries because of this quick diffusion process. There are reasons for why that diffusion takes place, because of the subpressure of the capillaries and the interstitial space. As the blood goes down, it's drawn back in by the blood proteins within the capillaries. And this diffusion process continues to happen. And that's how the cells are supplied with oxygen. So that's really, really important to know, and another thing to understand about this key research. So this research starts to get picked up on, and it in the 1960s, it got picked up to such an extent that the American Medical Association actually started to post about it and started to bring Mason's research, or expanded research, into the public eye. And I'll show you here now. Here, this was published as in an AMA article. I'll get you exactly what that is now. So, just give me a second whilst I pull this up. So in 1964, the American Medical Association posted this article in a journal known as Today's Health. And so, as you can see, they're talking about the blood protein research. If the lymphatic system did not carry a large portion of the remaining seepage back to the bloodstream, we would all bleed to death initially in a matter of hours. Loss of blood proteins through the capillary walls would be partially disastrous. So as you can see here, they've jumped on board on the research. They are now talking about this major research of the blood proteins leaking through the capillary walls. Bear in mind, they did not post anything about this before. The general consensus before this research was that these blood proteins do not leach into the interstitial spaces. So as we can see proof here, the AMA jumped on board on the research. And it looked like things were starting to, in my research, it looked like things were starting to be on and up, and there was a massive breakthrough. And it's really interesting because the year after that, the US government, I'll jump into that in a second. The US government, they then tasked lymphologists and people who were doing blood protein research from all over the world to come together and figure this puzzle out and develop more research, run more experiments. And they created, I think, a total of 370 scientists from around the world all came together to work on the blood protein research. And I think 60 of those 370 were actually American scientists. So the US government did this, and they all came together, and it was what was then created in 1965 was created the International Society of Lymphology. It was a society of researchers who were blood protein researchers to come together, expand on the research, share data, fund each other, and get this ultimately out into the public. This is where the deceit happens. Listen closely, this is where the deceit happens. There were actually bylaws written within the formation of the Academy or the International Society of Lymphology. These bylaws were written, made it so that this research would never be published or could never be published in the public. It couldn't get out of the Academy or the society. Let me read it here. Bylaws were written and brought into effect which ruled the ISL, the International Society of Lymphology, a non-pure medical society, meaning that every medical member of the society was permanently restricted from ever publishing in medical journals any research they had made or would make in the future. This means that all of the research of the blood proteins and the role of the lymphatic system was locked in the ISL, was locked in the International Society of Lymphology, and it could not be made public. This is where the major deceit happened, and this is where they locked away that research in a very cruel way. I mean, I would like to know more about, how that all came to be, and I'm sure if I dig a little bit deeper, I'll be able to find some answers. But this was truly shocking to me because this is life-changing research. And in the next live that we do, where I'm going to talk about how this actually happens, how the blood proteins do leak out of the pores in large amounts, and what we can do about it, I'm going to share with that in another live. But just the idea and the knowledge of this being the root cause of every condition in the human body, cancer, autoimmune diseases, arthritis, lung conditions, all of these conditions, chronic degenerative conditions of the human body, there is a beginning, and this is the beginning. And if we understand how to prevent this, and if we even understand the mechanisms of this, I guarantee many of you, as myself, didn't even know about this stuff. I mean, if you didn't know about this, put a little comment below, and I would like to see, because from one sense, I've been researching the lymphatic system for a while and never came across the depth and level of deceit like I did here. So when I started to research this, it was like super apparent to me that I wanted to go deeper and also share it with everybody. But it gets even worse than that, because as the research was buried, the AMA then decided to revert back to their old ways. And in a 1982 article, I believe, in a 1989 article that was posted by the AMA in the Home Medical Encyclopedia, they revert back to their old ways, and they say the large size of the protein molecules prevent them from escaping from the blood into the tissue. Another type of plasma protein is albumin. The large size of the protein molecules prevent them from escaping from the blood into the tissue. So here you see that they've reverted back to their old ways, and they've completely lied to everybody and denied and deliberately hidden the blood protein lymphatic connection research. This is the major deceit, and this is what has happened. This has been happening for decades now, since this time, and it was Dr. C. Samuel West who was bringing a lot of this information forward. He was a part. He was a non-professional, a part of the scientists that were involved in the Academy, the Society of Lymphology. He branched out and created his own thing, the Academy of Lymphology, and it was through the Academy of Lymphology he was able to bring out this research. So as you can see, the AMA completely lied about this vital, important information about the lymphatic system. And you know, when I read through it and I'm sharing this now, it just becomes really, it's quite important for me and big for me, because I think one of the things that make people struggle with their health, the reason why people are going through so many health challenges today, is because there is a lack of knowledge and understanding. And if you also check the lymphatic or the medical anatomy and physiology textbooks and medical journals, back then compared to now, they're completely different. There was information and truth about the lymphatic system back then, especially when you get, you know, Dr. Arthur C. Guyton, who was one of his names, was one of the main authors of these medical textbooks and journals, and is what a lot of them use. And in his first and second editions, he put a lot of information about the blood protein research in there. And I haven't myself got one because it's very difficult to get like the first and second editions, but they are no longer in these medical journals. Blood protein research is all the same now. They simply state that the blood proteins don't leak out of the capillary walls. This is frustrating for people who have known about this for years and have been trying to tell people about this. I can see how frustrating that would have been, but I feel like the energy is shifting in this world now. The world is shifting. People are waking up and they're able to handle deeper truths, and this is one of the reasons why I'm making this live, why I've made the blog post, why I've done this research and bringing it to you. And bear in mind, you know, I've tried to give it to you in a way that's easy to understand, but I've probably not touched on a lot of deeper aspects and more mechanisms involved. But I thought maybe that's simple enough for us all to understand the deeper scam that's happened here. And in the future videos that I'll be bringing out, maybe YouTube videos or more lives, I'll be going more deeper into these concepts. So yeah, that's the blood protein research. That's the scam of the AMA and how they've hidden and buried this research that's really crucial. And so I'm really keen to understand some of your guys' thoughts. If you have any questions, let me know. God bless your work. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, this isn't really my work. I haven't done anything to, you know, I'm just simply learning, reading stuff off the internet that already people have been coming out and forward about this stuff. So I'm just trying to collate that into some form and some way and bringing it to the rest of you. I like the way you explained it all, easy to understand. Wow, I want to hear more. Thank you, Lulu, I appreciate that. Summarize in layman's terms. Yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to, I'm trying to make it easy for everybody to understand. What's good, Rodney? My brother, when you go even deeper on what they bury, you'll discover that the kidneys are not a part of the lymphatic waste filtration, but rather blood distillation. You know what, bro? I'm getting there. I'm opening my mind. I'm getting there. The Water of Life, the treatise of urine therapy. I'm trying to understand that kidney connection, you know, because part of me is like, when we do see the kidneys break open and we do see that filtration happen, like what Morse teaches, and I've been doing that with my clients, we do see an increase in detoxification, but at the same time, I also understand the urine therapy aspect. So I'm going to go deeper into that, bro. I know you've sent me some links. So yeah, I'm going to go more into that and expand my awareness and knowledge, bro. Appreciate that. I didn't hear it from the beginning. Can I rewatch it? Yep. I'm going to be posting this on my page, so you can check this video whenever you can. After this live, I'm going to be saving it. Really cool stuff. Thanks, man. You're welcome. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you all. The fact that I can come here on live, you know, I've not done lives for a while, and there's so many of you here, you know, which is wonderful to see, and it's amazing. So I appreciate every single one of you that support the page. Give me the space and time to actually do these, you know, do this research and everything like that. I also want to let you guys know, if you haven't already, the 14-day detox challenge, sign up ends on the 28th of August. So if any of you that are wanting to experience detoxification for the first time, and I just DM'd you some eye-opening stuff, brother. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out soon, bro. Appreciate it so much, man. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you would be dead, bro. But then again, I one thing. I mean, the stuff that you probably sent would answer it, but I would wonder if you ingest toxins from the kidneys, going through that process of digestion and neutralization, maybe you wouldn't experience something. I don't know. They're just my thoughts, but I'm gonna get into it, bro. Appreciate it, man. And I hope you're good, bro, Rodney. I know it's been a tough time for you, man. So appreciate you hopping on here. Don't get into this urine therapy camp, Azim. Urine is not medicine. All right, bros. Everybody's got their opinions on urine therapy. You know what? I don't ignore anything. I don't sit here and dive deeper into. I accept all forms of knowledge and understanding. One of my principles of being a researcher is looking into things that you may not necessarily believe. There's an amazing quote that sums this up, is people will always choose what they don't know over what they know. I completely butchered that. People will always choose what they know over what they don't know. And you'll see this in daily walks of life, in your day-to-day life. It's a comfort zone, it's a barrier that you will not cross. You will always stay with what you do know. And what I try to do is overcome that barrier. I try to, even if it's something that I'm totally against, why can't I sit there and learn about it? And in fact, you know, what makes a great lawyer? Or what makes a great lawyer? A great lawyer will study the other case better than their own, or just as good. A great lawyer will study the other side, and they will know the nuts and crannies of the way the other person thinks, the other story. This is what makes them foundationally better at protecting their clients and their own story. So this is some of the concepts that I like to carry with myself. You know, I've been against urine therapy for a while, but you know that I do believe there are some truths in a lot of different things. So it doesn't mean I'm going to be start drinking my piss from now on. I probably won't, but good to know either way. So what you've essentially described is a push by those in power for the disruption and proper efficient energy transfer between blood and lymphatic system. The ebb and flow of energy within the system. Exactly. What we've just described here is the importance, the major importance of the lymphatic system in clearing the blood proteins and the waste from the cells. We've also discovered that in fact the cells, the proteins do leak into those interstitial spaces, and there is a connection between that phenomena and the lymphatic system. And if the lymphatic system does not pull the blood proteins out of the interstitial spaces in an efficient manner, death or cellular starvation, oxygen deprivation ensues. And so we already have half of the picture solved here. If we can understand how do we actually make sure the lymphatic system is up, running, circulating, doing its job. That's, you know, if we can solve that half of the problem, we've solved half of the issues of our health. And in fact, when we do that, and I've worked with clients, when we just simply work on the lymphatic system and you get that circulating, believe me, a lot of your issues will go. The other half is, how do we prevent the blood proteins from, in an excess amount, getting into the interstitial spaces? That can be physical factors, but it can also be psycho, spiritual, and emotional factors, which we'll get into in another live. What is the immune system's role in the lymph system? The lymph system is the immune system. The lymphatic system is the body's defense immune system. They're not separated. That's why the immune system, the concept of the immune system also isn't necessarily correct. There isn't an immunity of the body. There isn't something where the body completely isn't affected by. Immunity basically means that the body is, there is no cause and effect. Immunity means that there is no effect, and so by there being no effect, there can't be no cause. But we live in a body of cause and effect. There's always things happening. There isn't such thing as immunity, but rather a bodily defense response. They've changed the wording, so to speak, in order to fit the germ theory and the germ paradigm. That's not the case. We have a lymphatic system that deals with cellular waste. We have defense system mechanisms involved to make sure to identify, eliminate, neutralize toxins or foreign proteins or anything like this. But we don't have an immunity where this stuff just doesn't happen. There is always a cause and effect. Whatever toxins come in the body will leave a residue or will leave some kind of effect upon the lymphatic system, which it then has to deal with. I appreciate everybody joining today. And just for a last call as well, the 14-day detox challenge. If you've been wanting to detox, if you know you have irritable skin, irritable bowels, can't think properly, brain fog, you have cognitive weaknesses, you have digestive and stomach weaknesses, you have pain within the stomach area, you are maybe slightly overweight or at a weight in which you know you shouldn't be at. If you have swelling and different kinds of pains in the lower back or in the chest area, if you're coughing, if you suffer from colds, flus, if you've got sinus issues, if you've got weak hair, brittle nails, if you've got any of these issues, neurological conditions, a 14-day detox can be an amazing stepping stone into getting into the world and the wonderful art and science of detoxification. John Rose likes to call it the solid food vacation, which is basically where you sustain from eating. In this 14-day detox challenge, even though most people will choose to do a juice fast, which I always recommend because you're going to see more results in that way, you're not entitled to do that. It's not obligatory. And I'm going to show you how you can pick your own detox based on where you are in your life. Every day a new lesson will be released to you. These are lessons that I have pre-recorded that will be dripped to you every new day. These will share with you the foundational principles of detoxification. So not only are you going to experience going on a detox yourself and getting the support of me and the entire group that have joined you. At the moment, we have 30 people already joined in the 14-day detox challenge. It's a big group. It's a very, very big group that are going to be all on the same journey as you, trying to conquer their health, learning the art and science of detoxification. I'm also going to be there because you're going to be in a very dynamic group. We're going to have a live call, preparation call at the beginning. We're going to have a victory call at the end where we're going to share our wins, get to know each other a little bit more, and just bask in our own 14 days of glory. I'm also going to be on that challenge. The sign up ends on the 28th of August, but it officially starts. The first day is going to be on the 3rd of September. I'm also going to be doing a 40-day juice fast at that time. I have a week intensive coming up in the UK, which is going to be something I'm going to share a lot with you guys. It's a new study of research, learning about the psychosomatic principles, overcoming duality, and healing the human body through what is called sustained acupressure. And I'm preparing my body nutritionally, so I'm also going to be joining all of you on that 14-day detox challenge. And I'm going to share with you my journey as well. I'm going to be taking a lot of different herbs, minerals, digestive enzymes. I'm going to be megadosing on chaga, so I'm excited for that. So yeah, a lot of exciting things to come. So if you're interested in detoxification, you want to get started, you need a group, you need accountability, and you want a easy, relaxed, and informative educational process along the way. Join the 14-day detox challenge. Link is in my bio, and it's extremely affordable. I wanted to create a stepping stone for everybody to just jump in without having to worry about finances. It's pretty much, you can pay anything you want above £11.11. So that's less than £1 a day to join the 14-day detox challenge, which is incredibly affordable for you to not only get educational material, but also experience this with a dynamic group. So I look forward to seeing many of you over there. I appreciate everybody joining in on this call. This will be recorded, so it's going to be up on my Instagram straight away, and you can go through this. This is the blood protein research and the great lymphatic system, and how the AMA have hidden this vital and deliberately hidden and deceived everybody of this vital information. Appreciate everybody joining today. Much love, everybody, and I'll see you on a very soon live in which I'll go over the other principles that we already talked about. Thank you, everybody. Much love. Have a great night.